Afternoon, everyone. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is the new Double Shot Show. Comes your way every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Your Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. They're heading to Indianapolis this weekend, trying to get 4-0 against the Colts. But before they get to 4-0, I want to seize upon the number 3 and share with you, this is kind of a random thing here today, a little bit of a list that I was thinking of earlier in the day. I was basically going through my head as to who is there that might not be getting the proper credit for this start, even if it's just from me. Who is it that I've left off my own list, the various coverage, whether it's spoken or written, that I feel like I should just kind of take a step back and say, all right, who's here? Who's maybe behind the scenes? Who's maybe just getting stuff done, but no one says anything about it? So I'm going to do that today. I'm going to give you my three unsung heroes of this 3-0 start. We're going to do this in ascending order just for fun. Number 3 for me is James Daniels. Did you know, first of all, that Daniels exists? I mean, there's just not a lot of discussion about this guy. He's been the starting right guard now. This is his third year. And all he's done in that time is to be the steadiest of the team's offensive linemen. Now, yeah, that's partly because they've had a lot of movement around him, a lot of kids come in. But he's been the highest graded player for the Steelers at any position, either side of the ball. Higher than TJ Watt, higher than Justin Fields, higher than everybody that we're actually talking about. There's something to be said for that. The Lions had a ton of injuries. The Lions had some inconsistent performance. Not him. All he does is seal up game after game after game and never, ever gives up a sack. I don't even know when was the last time, I'd have to look this up, that he conceded one. On top of that, this is just a good dude, too. This is a guy who, and I've seen this with my own eyes, has been spending probably more time than anybody else with Broderick Jones, trying to get the best out of him, trying to keep him calm, trying to keep him focused on the kind of player that he needs to be. They're right next to each other in most settings, on the field and off the field. That kind of stuff matters. Number 2, you're not going to like this one. Terrell Austin. Has there ever been a coordinator in our city's history who's flown more under the radar than Austin? Now, I'm going to guess that's because people like to think, and there's merit to this, that the defense is really just Mike Tomlin's. And the defensive coordinator, whoever it happens to be, at least ever since Dick LeBeau, is just someone who holds the clipboard and brings him coffee. But what I've heard on the inside is that TA has been largely responsible for a lot of the unusual movements that you've seen from the Steelers defense so far this season. Give you an example. When Alex Highsmith was healthy and when there was pressure on TA and everybody else to get Nick Herbig onto the field, somehow get him onto the field, he can't just be a backup. TA was the one who came up with the 3 OLB scheme. He was the one who said, let's just put all 3 of them out there and see how it goes. Move them around a little bit, have one of them stunt up the middle, have them switch spots, switch slides, whatever it takes. Now, he has to do that in the context that he's also got, if you think about it, 3 inside linebackers. They don't get on the field together, but when you're talking about Elandon Roberts, Peyton Wilson, and Patrick Queen, you're talking about guys you want on the field, guys that you don't want to take off. TA has done more in the way of disrupting opponents up front, defensive line, and right behind that than anyone gives him credit for. That's him doing that too. It's not the head coach. And speaking of, yeah, you knew this was headed here, right? How is number 1 not Tomlin? How is it that every time the Steelers lose, and mark my words, if they lose to the Colts, which I don't expect that they will, it's going to be 100% on Tomlin. But the 3-0 start, don't hear a thing. Doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. I'm going to share with you a little something from this summer, early this summer. I had a talk with Tomlin. This was after one of the very first OTA sessions on the South Side. And he spoke about the need to instill physicality in his group. He felt like if that was the first thing that came up, the first thing that they were thinking of, don't overcomplicate it. Don't get into the X's and O's. Don't get into film reviews or anything like that. Just say, go out there and just be tough. If he could separate the guys who wanted to be tough from the ones who would just kind of pretend to be tough, he was at least going to have the right ingredients to, I guess, the hot dog. So he begins that process months ago. By the time they get to camp, they're ready for it. By the time they get to preseason, they're ready for it. By the time they get to the regular season, they're openly talking, these players are, publicly, about making the other team tired, making the other team stand there on their hips. Connor Hayward told me this week, he said, that all started this summer. We didn't just begin doing that. We don't go out there and wear down a really good Chargers team because we just made up our minds. We practiced for it. We trained for it. That starts with the head coach. When we come back, our main segment.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Welcome back. Out of those three unsung heroes that I mentioned in the opening segment, I'm going to focus now just on Terrell Austin, because Chris Halleck, this is a guy that's not getting his due anywhere outside of that building behind you, is he?
I don't think so. I do think he is a bit of an unsung hero when it comes to, as you said, unsung hero, but like when it comes to masterminds of defensive coordinators and everything like that. I don't think Terrell Austin is necessarily considered to be one of those guys, but lo and behold, this is the best defense in the NFL right now, and he is the guy who's putting the game plan together every single week, and right now it's absolutely working.
Well, what's been your favorite aspect of it? You're sitting there after these games, breaking down the film and everything for 2 days. Tell me what you see that you're liking in particular out of his scheme that he set up.
Well, there are a couple of things. One thing that I think is very underrated about Terrell Austin's defense as a whole is that he does do a very good job of disguising coverages. And that obviously works against any quarterback, but especially why they can have continued success against rookies. And when they're able to deploy these three safety packages and, you have multiple linebackers on the field, they have different ways of having certain guys drop into certain certain zones when they do run out of this like of a zone coverage. They do a really good job of moving guys around and having guys who are playing back, they move up into a robber spot or something like that, and other guys will drop back, and it's just not the same guy always doing the same thing, and I think he does a really good job of that. But then also, life is a whole lot easier as a defense than as a defensive coordinator when a defensive line is winning the way that they are.
I swear to you, I was just thinking the same thing, because all of this, you could just throw it all out if he has to stack extra bodies up front. The fact that he can just put Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton out there and have a two-man rush and have it be an effective rush and have Cam doing everything that he was doing Sunday and just pretty much eating people like a cartoon character, that's just completely game-changing when it comes to this sort of thing. One other thing I want to mention about TA, and I think this is important, is he's one of those coordinators, and I think with the defensive coordinator more so than offensive coordinator, it's pivotal to have someone who has those guys behind them, who has the intangibles. And Dante Jackson had this to say today to you, Chris, about the way TA conducts himself with those players.
Great. He's a guy you want to play for. He's going to challenge you. He's going to keep it all authentic. You know what I'm saying? He's not chirping or going crazy on guys for making mistakes. He kind of just expect you to know your job and do your job. And if you don't, get it next time. You know, I think that's probably the biggest thing that stood out with me with Coach TA, man, is that he's just all about you just executing and knowing what you got to do. And if he got to keep telling you, then he will. There's no just like I said, it's a great calm, and you can say that really about a lot of coaches on this staff, man. It's just the room for growth and the no panic. I think that's the biggest thing that I like about Coach TA is that he don't panic. He don't think the game's over after one play or 1-2 drives. You know, he's just gonna keep on calling it. He's gonna keep on expecting us to execute. And like I said, if you don't, get him next play. But he doesn't really allow you to get down on yourself. He never gets down on himself. He never gets down on this collective. So that just makes you want to go out there and just play free because you're not worried about getting chewed out for getting something wrong or getting taken out the game for getting something wrong, or take you out in certain situations because they don't feel you can't do certain things. It just all flows really well, and I think that for me being a vet, I think that's like the biggest thing that helps guys play with confidence. And you got a coach that trusts in you and that understands football habits.
Just feel compelled to say here, Chris, Dante Jackson, like seriously good dude.
Yeah, he really, really is. Anytime you want to talk to him, he's about as open as you could possibly get.
I walked past him like in his general direction the other day after the game, and he sees me and goes, "Well, how did we do?" It's like, hey, I'm supposed to ask the questions around here. He's something. He's got some energy to him. I almost feel like, Chris, we could look at this entire defense, not just the 11 who are out there for the first snap, but even guys like Isaiah Loudermilk who's come in. I mean, there are people, and I'm not sure I wasn't one of them, who thought Loudermilk might not even make the team out of training camp. He's been a real guy. There's been a bunch of those on this team, and we're probably going to need to see even more with Corey Trice being out and others. That's impressive. There's depth to this defense too.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things, especially up front, that people were concerned about. They were concerned that even if Cam Hayward does get back to Cam Hayward form, is Larry Ogunjobi going to be consistent? Is he going to stay healthy? Is Keanu Benton actually going to take that leap in year 2? What's Isaiah Loudermilk look like? What does DeMarvin Leal look like? What does Montravius Adams look like? There were legitimate questions. Now, there are things to like about each of those players, but at the same time, it's not like these guys are all pros,
No, it's just seeing, just a minute ago, I've neglected to mention Alex Highsmith being out. Why? Because Nick Herbig comes on and looks like Superman, so it's fun. It's fun. And it looks, maybe more important than anything, it looks sustainable, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really, especially if this defense continues to win up front, what they're doing right now is sustainable against just about anybody in the league. And it is that old adage. Like, it doesn't matter how offensive this league gets. If you continue to win in the trenches, especially up front, especially when you're not even blitzing that often.
Right. And in particular, inside a division where all of the other 3 teams are terrible defensively. When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Today's J1Q, which stands for Just One Question if you're new around here, comes from Ben Cohen on Bainbridge Island in the state of Washington.
Hello, DK, and all the wonderful fans that listen to The Double Shot, my new favorite afternoon podcast. I have a question today about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Not what you might think, though. I'm wondering, do you think Russ is already doing his job here? I mean, unfortunately, Ben wasn't here to mentor Kenny, and I think we saw some struggles there. But also, Justin really hasn't had a veteran mentor, and to have someone that has been to the Super Bowl, understands what that pressure is like, and he may not be in his peak performance stages anymore, but he's definitely mentally in his prime in my understanding. So I'm wondering, maybe is Russ already doing his part for this team? And if so, are we seeing the effects in Justin?
No. That could be the entire answer I give you, my friend, but no. It has a nice sound to it. I'm sure if there was a violin and piano soundtrack behind there, you'd have something that could make for a nice movie. But Russell Wilson is here to be QB1. Russ didn't go through all that he's gone through this summer, making himself visible and available to everybody in Pittsburgh. Look, this is a legit good dude. I'm not knocking that part of it at all. But he was trying to ingrain himself into the community. He has tried even harder to do that within the locker room. He's Mr. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm Russ. Nice to meet you, random special teams guy. That's not by accident. That's what Russ wants to be. He still wants to be Russ. And that's not anything related to being anybody's mentor. And as long as I'm bursting bubbles here, Ben Roethlisberger never wanted to do that either. Ben wouldn't have done that if he had hung around. If he had stayed for another 2-3 years to be, I don't know, just some sort of hanger-on backup, he wouldn't have been Kenny Pickett's mentor. He wouldn't have been. And that's not saying that, that he would have been a bad teammate either. It's just saying that that's not who these guys are. Ben has accomplished a lot. Russ has accomplished a lot. Ben has made a ton of money. Russ has made a ton of money. You don't need to hang on. You don't need to be kind of lowering yourself a little bit. If an opportunity came along, I believe this, for Russ to go somewhere else, and the Steelers went to him and say, hey, would you mind being, I don't know, not that I've heard anything like this, just throwing it out there, traded to the Dolphins or something since they need a quarterback. Do you think he's going to say no? You think he's going to say, no, I'm going to stay here and just mentor Justin Fields? No. I'm going to throw this at you too, though, since you brought it up. The mentor in this equation is Tom Arth. And as long as today's theme was unsung heroes, Arth happens to be the quarterback's coach, the one who replaced Mike Sullivan. And he has been all over Fields, not in a negative way. They're just inseparable. Practice field, Arth is standing right behind him. Arth is constantly talking to him, getting his feedback. Arth doesn't design the plays. Now, Arth doesn't do the X's and O's. Arth is all about, as any quarterback's coach is, the execution. How do you handle it? How do you get through this situation? How do you learn from that situation? That's been Arth. It's not been Russ. It's been Arth. Perfect ending to the Unsung Heroes show. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow at 4 p.m.